In this discussion, we're going to talk about the difference between religion and spirituality. And in this discussion, we're going to define religion. I'm going to give my personal example of religious experiences that I have had, and even touch a little bit on religious conditioning. And we will transition into defining spirituality. Another personal example I will give of how I practice spirituality and the importance of spirituality. So if this is a video that you are interested in, stick with us. It's going to be a good discussion, and together we will grow spiritually, and this will also help us in every aspect of our lives. We can define religion as something that we associate with a higher power. And this can be institutions, it can be an organized community, and simply it's a practice of values that are personal to you, being like-minded in practicing such values and beliefs. And this can be a practice that you may do or may not do. And of course, we know when we talk about religion, it can become very controversial. But in a general sense, this is how we define religion. And sometimes we know that religion can be a mechanical thing. For instance, it can just be that we're going to this community or this church every Sunday or Wednesday, and we were brought up to just go and just listen to the speaker, the pastor or minister. And this became very mechanical, and really, it may not have contributed to your spiritual growth. And that may be a little bit what we may talk about later under religious conditioning. I want to give a personal example of one of my religious experiences in my 20s. I can recall that when I was stationed in the Army in Fort Stewart, Georgia, Hinesville was the city. And I was in my barracks one day just relaxing, and I heard a knock at the door. I answered it, and it was a person recruiting people to attend church services. And of course, me being brought up, going to church, and just, the thing that you thought was right to do because everybody did it. It was in your family, and it was in your grandparents, and so on. And so, yeah, I'll attend the church. And so I started to attend the church regularly. And this particular pastor, I noticed in the congregation that he told the women that they could not wear makeup, they could not have any kind of jewelry or any outward apparel. They had to wear long dresses. And this was, of course, looking back, I think very manipulative because he wanted to control the congregation. And as you know, in some systems of religion, that is the goal, to control the masses in some cases. And now I'm not saying that all religions do this or that all religions are bad. There are religions out there that do practice good values. But looking back on this, I could just simply see that he was just trying to control the people. And that was one of my religious experiences, looking back, how I can see that, in my opinion, was simply a practice of being very religious. From my childhood growing up, it was a situation where we didn't have a choice. I had to go to church every Sunday or Wednesday. There were certain things that I could not do. And it was just that feel of do's and don'ts. And as we now talk a little bit about religious conditioning, you may be in a situation where your parents, raised you a certain way to not do certain things. It may have been that you couldn't attend certain parties, and I know parents do that for the protection and safety and their children, but I'm talking about extreme cases where it just seemed like you were a hermit and just could not do anything, could not watch certain things on TV. And I know that in other households where children grow up, it may be the complete opposite. Maybe you were a child that could do anything you want, and you had no restrictions, and you were just a free bird. And it's interesting, and sometimes the result of that, children grow up with different results. Some grow up doing great things, and they were restricted all their lives and felt like it was just rules and regulations, and now they are doing great things. And then some are the opposite, that become on the streets, homeless, getting into trouble. What this teaches us is that we have a free will, we have free choice to choose later in life what is personal and what is valuable to us. And it doesn't have to be this sense, so to speak, of religious abuse. You may have had different experiences, and perhaps you would like to share those maybe in the comments. And also, if you're liking the beginning of this discussion so far, don't forget to subscribe to Survivoneers. We are a channel dedicated to talking about topics of spirituality, spiritual growth, and how we can develop personally in our lives. Religion can be defined simply as a greater power outside of you. You may believe in a superior, a creator, or something that just is not within nature, it's divine, and you associate that with something beyond you. But now let's transition and make the contrast in defining spirituality. Now keep in mind that spirituality and religion, they do overlap and come together in certain aspects. But there are certainly differences. When we simply define spirituality, it could simply mean that we go out into nature and we clear our minds, our bodies, and our spirit. And this could be or sound like walking the beach, hearing the sounds of the ocean. This could look like going by a peaceful pond where it's serene and you're just removing your negative thoughts and you're starting to envision positive things in your lives. This could look like practicing yoga and stretches where you are in tune with your body and your mind, and you're trying to just find center and balance. Spirituality is not necessarily associated with a greater power, but some people who practice spirituality do believe in something that is also beyond them. But they may use words like universe or great spirit or creator. They do understand that there are designs in this universe and may associate themselves as part of the universe. You may have heard of Eckhart Tolle, a spiritual teacher, a very popular one. And he talks about that we are the universe. We are one consciousness. And so this is interesting because spirituality is about being aware of your surroundings and being mindful and even practicing mindfulness. So keep this in mind. We are defining spirituality and trying to contrast it with religion. And it is a simple practice of simply finding balance, in my opinion, and it is being in the present moment. Spirituality can also be based on a culmination of past experiences in our life. And for instance, for me, I grew up, once again, as I was saying earlier, in a very religious family. I had no choice. This is what I had to believe, and this is what I had to do, and this is what I couldn't do. And I grew up in that way. But going back and looking at all those examples, it taught me that in spirituality, it is just a simple practice of trying to stay healthy in your mind and your body and your spirit. It does not have to be a set of do's and don'ts. It's not something that feels mechanical. In other words, you're trying to embrace connection and emotional connection with the universe. And in a sense, we are energies and we are made up of the universe. And that is a scientific proof because we all have movement and motion and we are energy, and we are simply trying to become in tune with the universe. And there we find spiritual growth and spiritual balance. I want to take this moment and give you another example where we can contrast religion and spirituality. Again, I was attending this church where the pastor demanded that every person of the congregation give a tenth of their earnings. And this goes back to a biblical teaching in the Old Testament where people gave of their flocks and of their possessions. And it was a command that each person give a tenth of that. And I know that in some churches that follows over into today where they still practice that teaching. But the point that I'm trying to make is that I was attending this church one time and I was walking to my car and the pastor followed me. And that day I chose not to give into the offering because I was really in a position that I needed money for food and things like that. And I was running low. But this was in my 20s once again when I was stationed in the Army. The pastor made sure that everybody gave of their means, and he knew that what each person was making. In the military, as you may know, there are ranks, and that salary is public information. And of course, I believe the pastor was in the military himself, and he knew what each person was making. Those that were part of the military attending the congregation, but he followed me to my car and he said, "Brother, aren't you going to give your tithe?" And I looked down and I had a envelope ready for the tithe, but I had decided, at that time that I was going to keep the money for food at the time because I knew that I needed the money. And he looked at me and he said, "God is not going to bless you unless you tithe." And so at that time, I felt obligated how I grew up, and I felt obligated at that time in my 20s. And I gave the envelope to him and he said, "Thank you." But I tell this quick story because it was a situation once again of rules and regulations, and I probably won't go down the rabbit hole of what the Bible actually says about that, but just in a general sense, it does say to give as you prosper. That is a traditional practice that people still follow in the Old Testament if you are familiar with the teachings of the Bible. But when we talk about contrasting religion and spirituality, we can be good for goodness sake. We can be successful financially and still give to the poor, to the needy. Maybe you are fortunate to be financially secure and you give, to charities. But we don't have this religious context tied to it where you have to do this. It's a command. God's not going to bless you. And I, of course, have a different opinion about that. I believe that today, it is a personal choice of how we give of our means to society. But the point is that we don't want to have a mindset that just because we give or help others, that we expect something in return, because I believe the universe does not operate like that. It has to come from a sense of wholeness, a sense of being genuine and not trying to go out there and do these works for personal gain and to make ourselves look good. And another point that I want to make about spirituality is the importance of practicing it. Take, for instance, if you are struggling right now, maybe you lost a loved one, maybe you are not making the money that you want to right now. Maybe there's something going on in your health and you have been struggling with this for years, or maybe you just received some news recently about your health. And you can begin to see that everything just starts to stack up in life and can become overwhelming. And we can just maybe sometimes break down spiritually. And this is the importance of having a spiritual foundation, because when we get into the roots of this and we have emotional strength and we've been meditating every morning, that we can attract goodness, and we've been taking care of our bodies and exercising, and we've been reading certain books or hearing certain spiritual teachers that show us how to find balance and spiritual growth. When all those things of life begin to come, it's a test of our strength. And there is an old saying that says that if you faint in the time of adversity, your strength is small. And so what this simply means is that the true test of our spiritual strength comes when those things are actually happening. How are we going to respond to those things in life that weigh on us? We have a choice of how to respond. We can fall into deep depression. We can turn to alcohol and other drugs. We can do things that we shouldn't be doing, that are not good for our minds and our bodies, and the list can go on. But the point is, when we put spirituality into practice, I'm not saying that it's going to make us a perfect person, but what I am saying is that it's going to help us to curtail some of those things that come our way in life. And now we know how to respond to them. And now we can still find happiness and joy. We can go out and do the things that we love to do. We can still treat our intimate relationships with respect and our partners with respect. And we're not yelling at them. We're not being angry or overly frustrated for unnecessary reasons. And so I believe that you can see the picture and begin to understand the importance of practicing spirituality. This is the difference between religion and spirituality. There are usually some frequently asked questions of how do you start to become spiritually enlightened, or how do you activate spirituality? And some of the things that we can start doing today to begin our journey of being enlightened is that we simply, as we said earlier, start finding some enjoyable, peaceful avenues, such as taking a walk. Turn all the distractions off. Don't look at your phone while you're taking that little walk. Put your iPhone, put your devices away when you're hearing the sounds of the ocean, or you're hearing the birds in the trees, or you're just sitting at your bed or on a sofa where you're comfortable. There's no distraction, and you are just simply shutting everything out, and you start to slow down and control the breathing and be peaceful. This is some of the things that we can do right now, and we can begin our day right by doing it first thing in the morning and before all the clutter comes. That's a really good time to do it. And also, it's a good time to do it before bed, where you can remove all negative thoughts and all the things that have bombarded you for the day. That's a good time to start to meditate. Meditation does not have to be prayer necessarily to a God or something that you believe in. It could just be simply collecting your thoughts and finding balance. Those are one of the avenues that we can start to do. Another way to begin to activate spirituality is, have you ever tried feeling the feeling before you have even experienced it? And this can happen with food. You think about certain foods and your mouth starts to water. Man, I want that food and I'm craving that food. And that's an example of feeling the feeling. But of course, in a deeper sense, when we make that connection with spirituality, we can be trying to envision where we are in 1, 2, 3 years. We may want to attract more money or more financial security. We may want to attract better health. We may want to have a better, more quality relationship with our intimate partner. Whatever it is that your heart desires, one of the practices of activating spirituality is, why not already live as if you have that? And you can wake up and start saying thankful statements. I am thankful that I am very healthy and that my body's not sick, my mind is strong. I am thankful that I keep making and multiplying money, and my goals and my dreams come with ease. I am thankful that I have a great intimate relationship with my partner, and we are in love and we are connected and we enjoy intimacy. So you see, these are some of the things that we can practice right now in order to build spiritual strength, in order to begin to have balance in our mind, body, and spirit. What is the difference between religion and spirituality? Religion can be a set of rules, do's and don'ts that feel mechanical. It can be extreme and even against the laws of the land at times. And that is something that we do not want to be associated with, where we will pay the consequence for certain things. What is the difference between religion and spirituality? Spirituality is more of a neutral sense, where we detach all the do's and don'ts, where we focus on what is true to us, where we try to connect with the universe and to be one in consciousness, because we are all conscious. We all have energy. And spirituality will allow us to be successful in many areas of our lives when we begin to practice it every day and properly. I want to take this time to thank you for making it to this part of the video. If you like discussions on spirituality, please subscribe to Surviving Ears. And I appreciate the time you have taken to engage in this discussion with us.